Hello and welcome to Ashock the Fourth Wall! Horror, my friends! It is October, and that means it's time for horror. Horror movies, Halloween specials, and creepy comic books. So naturally, that means our final year looking at manga based off The Ring. And ironically, none of the three we're looking at are actually horror. They have a horror origin, certainly, because they're based off The Ring, but they all go in different directions with it. Supernatural tragedy, supernatural drama, and horror comedy are what we're in for. And then Clive Sinclair picking up the slack with Ringu horror movies this month, too. Brand consistency! We spent a lot of time last year talking about the Ringu novels, and that's important to go back to for today's episode. Aside from Rasen, the movies have generally been very loose when it comes to adaptations of the novels, of which there are 6. They draw inspirations from them, but not in any significant manner. For instance, Sadako 3D draws some ideas from the 5th novel, S, but its plot is radically different. Also, while I haven't read S, I have a sneaking suspicion it doesn't have quite as many 3D gimmick shots in it. But regardless, even though the novels are not majorly important given how much the movies deviate from the source material, they do have an influence on them. I can't confirm this since the Wikipedia entry for the book is pretty vague, but supposedly 2019's Sadako is a loose adaptation of Tide, the final Ring novel. Ring, Rasen, S, Tide, despite the goofiness of the videotape viruses that alter your DNA or virtual reality constructs or whatever, the novels clearly do inspire stuff used in the films. And that's especially the case with today's review covering The Ring Volume 0, an adaptation of the movie Ringu Zero Birthday, which in turn was taken from the story Lemonheart featured in the 4th Ring novel Birthday. Confused yet? Sure, we all are! And like the good examples we've seen of it, the movie takes the best ideas from the short story and actually properly crafts it into a better narrative. It helps that the screenplay was by Hiroshi Takahashi, the same screenwriter for Ringu and Ringu 2. We saw a version of Lemonheart last year in The Ring Volume 4, but that was a straight-up adaptation as far as I know. And it featured weird stuff like the umbilical cord altar, Sadako's creepy and somewhat malevolent demeanor with no redeeming qualities, and her having an affair with the play director because of her stupid and convoluted revenge scheme for what happened to her mom. Instead, the movie decided what happened to Sadako was a tragedy, right? Well, let's go ahead and treat it like a tragedy. And of course, they need to fit it into the narrative of the movie version of Ring, and consequently, it works better. No attempted assault by a doctor, no revenge scheme or ill intent, no intersex backstory leading to smallpox infection, and while her psychic powers certainly play a part in it, it's more to explain why so many hate and fear her before her death, rather than just showing off, ooh, psychic powers. So let's dig into The Ring Volume 0, Birthday, which was also the name of Volume 4, and see if the manga can give us the first good Ring story in a while.
Welcome to Ashock the Fourth Wall, where dead comics rise. Linkara's gonna bring you all a Halloween surprise. Monsters from scary stories and adjacent categories. If you step into his laboratory, you won't believe your eyes. Linkara is a man punch, or is he something else? Linkara, for the last few days, he hasn't been himself. Linkara, brains, gore, skeletons and guts. Linkara, this comic sucks. Linkara.
Reading from a manga, so covers are not super important, though this one's better than the last few. A baby inside of a ring, in turn inside of an eye. It's very artsy and I dig it. Although don't disturb the baby. As you can see, it's in deep thought right now.
What does my new pacifier say about our society?
Also, just notice that half the baby is either melting or some kind of monster. Either way, the diaper rash is a real risk here. Let's take a look at the back cover. 30 years before the setting of the American blockbuster adaptation of The Ring. Wait, is that suggesting that the Japanese and American movies are in the same continuity? Yeah, I get for promotional purposes bringing up the American adaptation, even though this is a prequel to the original Ringu, but why specifically the setting of the American film? Like, are the two series in the same universe? Is there a huge epidemic of psychic girls getting shoved into wells? Does the Korean adaptation fit in there too? What about the Chinese bootlegs? Do Samara and Sadako have to team up to take on Bunshin Saba and Kayako? And if not, why not? Because that sounds amazing! It's hard to imagine, but the girl who would eventually climb out of your television set and kill you with pure fear was once a very pretty and confused girl. Well, if she's supposed to be the baby on the cover, then she's more contemplative than confused. We open on a shot of the well looking down. Once the ring of fate starts spinning, it cannot be stopped, even by me. At least until I turn off the spin cycle to pour in more detergent. Like the movie, the manga is bookended by a nameless girl talking to someone on the phone about the ring tape. And so, what's in the video? Kiyomi, you saw it. Why don't you just tell me? Look, it's just another steamed hams meme variation. Stop making a big deal about it. Just joking. I won't watch it. People's reaction when I ask them to watch this show. The girl on the other end says that there was a well in the video, which the girl is a little disturbed by because she had a strange dream about a well last night, describing the one from the ring tape. When I looked in, it was too dark for me to see anything. Well, yeah, it's 3 a.m. Sadako has to sleep too, you know. Or do you sleep with your lights on? However, in the dream, she moved on from the well. A sound seemed to come out of it, but I don't know what the text there says. And instead over to an abandoned, almost burnt-out house. And then there's this panel, which actually is kind of interesting, and I'll explain why in a minute. The house appeared to be uninhabited, and I entered it. Turned out it was not, and the owner assumed I was a burglar and came out to attack me. So in case you've never seen Sadako versus Kayako, there's a weird decision they made. Instead of having Sadako crawl out of a well on the tape, it's a shot of a weird abandoned building, a banging noise, and then Sadako entering through a door. No explanation is ever given why the tape is like this instead of the traditional tape, but this shot of the girl walking in is very reminiscent of it. This was originally made in the year 2000, so it's not like this was deliberate homage or foreshadowing of that, but it'd be a neat explanation for the changed tape. That something happened that shifted the focus of the ring tape from the well to the house or the like. I had this feeling that I should not go upstairs. I mean, this place looks so bad that even the mold thinks it's too grody to be in, so maybe it's just good sense. However, she hears a scream and looks out a window, spotting someone attacking a girl outside the well before the dream ended. The person she's talking to says she had the same dream. I'd just like to note that neither of these girls have seen the ring tape yet, so it's just another example of what we've seen so far in this franchise. Everyone in it has psychic powers. The girl asks the other if she can have a copy of the tape, since someone at the TV station is looking for it. That seems to imply that this is Kane, the girl that reporter Okazaki had gotten a copy of the tape from in Ringu 2. That idea is aided by the fact that not only is this manga our third Ring volume drawn by Meimu, but he draws both characters in roughly the same clothes and hairstyle. Mind you, he also drew Mai with the same sweater vest and button-down blouse combo, but it feels like adding in the TV station wants a copy of the tape thing is a deliberate connection not present in the actual film, which just ends with the dream before moving into the meat of our story, flashing back to 30 years earlier. A newspaper reporter named Miyagi is meeting with a teacher, specifically Sadako's teacher from when she was living on Izu Oshima, though she left after her mother died and her father, Dr. Heihachiro Akuma, gained custody. What kind of a girl was Sadako? She was fine as long as you didn't tell her that DVD was replacing VHS. Very smart girl. And very pretty, too. Told me once she really identified with the scene in Poltergeist where Carol Ann is staring at the TV static. Miyagi says that she tried to talk to the Yamamura family on the island, but obviously they didn't really want to talk about Sadako or her mother, especially not to reporters given what happened at the psychic demonstration. She asks the teacher if Sadako had psychic powers like her mother. Not sure. Every now and then, I, as a teacher, blame myself for not looking after the girl well enough. Give her 1 C- on a book report and it's all downhill from there. However, she also explains that Sadako used to be deathly afraid of the ocean. In fact, during a swimming lesson at the beach, Sadako refused to go into the water, warning them that if they go into the ocean, they'll all die. And indeed, despite the kids being good swimmers, 14 children died. Where was Mitch from Baywatch for this save when they needed him? However, the teacher reveals that the kids didn't drown. They died from some sort of shock syndrome. All 14 of them. There was something in that ocean. Damn it, Dagon! Can you not be chill for like 5 minutes? We cut over to Sadako Yamamura alone in her apartment. As you can see, it's very sparsely furnished. Basically just a desk and, hell, I don't even think there's a bed here. The truth behind Sadako's evil? She just needed a damn air mattress. She picks up a script and starts reading from it. That is it. I'm gonna get me a car that's environmentally friendly. Wow, this movie's gonna make me a star. As we've established, Sadako ended up with an acting troupe as an adult. In particular, she's an understudy as we cut to her at rehearsals, where she's intently studying the woman playing the main character. During a lunch break, as a woman talks to Toyama, the aforementioned sound guy, the main actress, Aiko, goes up to Sadako and loudly yells at her. Why are you looking at me like that? You give me the creeps! I can't concentrate on acting for God's sake! How can I possibly do theater acting if people are looking at me? Sadako Yamamura. Her deep loneliness and her striking beauty attracts me. I mean, if her beauty was slow-moving instead of striking, I wouldn't give a crap. As Sadako waits at a hospital to see her doctor, she seems to see vaguely humanoid faces floating in the air, but closes her eyes. She then talks to her doctor. Are you getting settled in Tokyo all right? Yeah. Yeah? During your last visit, we tried that tranquilizer. How was it? Do you still see strange things? Yeah, but that's because I let YouTube autoplay run for hours, and auto-generated kids' videos go to some weird places. She denies seeing anything strange anymore. That means it's your nerves. Psychogenic matter. That goes great with garlic. Dr. Akuma apparently had asked him to look into it for her. He asks if she's enjoying the theater, and she admits that she has started to feel a bit better since she joined it. Is that so? Acting can be used as a treatment for mental problems, you know. The theater turned out to be the best medicine for you after all, huh? Therapy, medication, just perform Death of a Salesman and you'll be fine. Later, at the theater, Aiko avoids Sadako upon spotting her backstage. One of the costumers goes up to Sadako. If you study her too hard, Aiko will despise you. Considering she's screaming at Sadako now, I'm curious what despised looks like. Sadako admits she's not really studying her. She just really likes the role that Aiko is playing and is envious of her. Of course, she's the main character. And everyone envies her. Stagehands, lighting, gaffers, really everybody wants to be the lead actress and will tear her apart in a jealous mob if given the chance to take it from her. Aiko, meanwhile, is getting makeup applied, but the makeup artist points out that she doesn't look so good. Aiko says it's been like that since Sadako joined. The makeup lady was apparently a former actress herself. What's to worry about? Remember, you also studied me pretty hard at first, trying to steal my secrets. Then you discovered how many literal skeletons I have in my closet, and that scared you off. That's not it. I see something behind Sadako. What? What do you see? A slightly bigger Sadako. A well. A well? Oh my god! That well is Sadako's stand! It's this horrible dream. Entering an old house with a well. There are these stairs leading up to a second floor. Then it turns out I'm late for class and I'm naked. The makeup lady, Kaoru, is shocked by this. That nightmare. I had it too! We should start a band! The costumer, who had entered a bit ago, overhears this. Nightmare? But that's not a nightmare, that's my sex dream. We cut over to rehearsals. The plot of the play seems to be about a woman coming back to life. Possibly as a ghost, it's unclear. But yeah, we've got that thematic connection of resurrection, ghosts, etc. I want to be with you. Ah, you're still vivid in my memory. If I could see you again, what would I say to you?
There's no afterlife, sorry.
If this is all just a dream, when I wake up from this dream, if I could be with you. Admittedly, I'd be annoyed that you hogged all the sheets, but still. Aiko looks over at Sadako and seems to see a ghostly image behind her, freezing her up. The director is annoyed and says they should take a break, almost unnecessarily belligerent about this. But then Aiko tops his aggression by saying it's all Sadako's fault and to stop looking at her like that. And then this page. You want me to die, don't you?
That's never gonna heal if you don't stop picking.
Good thing this play has a makeup person. I think you need a touch-up, Aiko. Sadako covers her eyes as the director tells Aiko she's acting strange. Well, actually, he yells that at her because this director doesn't really understand indoor voice. He once again forces a break, though tells both Aiko and Sadako to leave the stage. Toyama approaches her and tries to reassure Sadako that there isn't anything to worry about. She's just nervous right before opening night. She usually attacks her understudy right before opening night. It's like a theater tradition at this point. I'm used to this kind of treatment. Admittedly, it's kind of weird to hear it from my optometrist. He asks her why she joined the theater, and she explains that it helps her forget herself, losing herself by becoming someone else. He asks her if she loathes herself, but she doesn't know. That empty look Sadako shows at times, as if she's wandering somewhere between reality and dream. Fortunately, she's got Google Maps on her phone. The director is annoyed with Aiko, not really for the outbursts so much as he's feeling that she doesn't get the character she's playing. Which, that's on you for casting her, man. Aiko, I'm putting my life online for this theater. Yeah, occasional weird translation issues with this one. Just a grammatical thing here or there where it's missing a word or something. Unless the director meant that he's devoting himself to social media now. He then asks Aiko if she's doing the same, which... Dude, she's an actress. She doesn't have to put her life on the line for this thing. Which I presume to mean financial investment and not like this is really risking her life. I mean, unless this is actually a rehearsal for Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. Don't blame Sadako for your inability to act. Fortunately, we've got a great actor lined up if we need to replace you.
My boat.
While everyone else starts pulling things together, Aiko sits down and then notices someone barefoot approaching her. And their legs soon are revealed to be dirty or bruised. Toyama records some kind of weird noise and Kaoru goes to check on Aiko, who now looks like this. Oh no, she read the early reviews of her performance! Reporter Miyagi meets with Sadako's doctor, Dr. Kuno, asking about the supernatural abilities Dr. Akuma was trying to demonstrate. Kuno explains that the connection to the supernatural was denied by Akuma himself, but that there was a power. Perhaps calling it supernatural power might be an exaggeration, but it's great for marketing. He says he believes in a sixth sense, a form of intuition, like a mass exodus of rats before a ship sinks. Or many people may dream of an airplane crash before it occurs. So this is actually a Final Destination prequel. I think a life may have the ability to sense dangers and miseries ahead of time. Peter Parker isn't special. Lots of people have a spider sense. Sixth sense sounds rather ambivalent, and that word choice sounds rather confused. That's why the world can maintain its peace. Ambivalence! The true path to world peace! Still, he has a better thing to say after that. What if the existence of supernatural power is proven? What do you think will happen if people realize that some of us are in possession of supernatural power? Perhaps 1 out of thousands of people. Then it'll be a very niche party trick, I guess. No, he thinks that it'd lead to witch hunts, something Dr. Akuma also feared. Miyagi pulls out an audio recording of our go-to most important moment of the franchise, the psychic demonstration of Sadako's mom. She plays the tape, visibly uncomfortable doing so, but it's specifically to point out that the death of the reporter during it was connected to the demonstration and not separate like it was believed. Miyagi confesses that said reporter was her fiancé. What's more, every journalist who was there is dead now. Okay, but to be fair, they all ate from the snack table at the demonstration that was put together by Shizuko's brother, and he was kind of a cheap bastard. Pretty sure they all just got food poisoning. She asks where she can find Dr. Akuma and Sadako, but he claims not to know. I haven't really commented much on this as an adaptation of the movie because so far there hasn't really been that much changed. Though the pacing is a bit different since Aiko's death happens earlier in the film at 16 minutes out of an hour and 38, whereas in the manga it's at the 1/4 mark. However, this scene does have some marked differences. Miyagi admitting that she's the fiancé of the reporter Sadako killed happens here instead of later as in the movie. In the film, Dr. Kuno just rejects the idea of supernatural powers outright instead of talking about premonitions. It's not like it really changes much in the story, but I feel like the fiancé reveal works better later in the story, since here it shows too early that there's more at play here than just a curious reporter. Back over to the theater, the director talks to the cast and crew. The cause of Aiko's death is currently unknown.
We think we're dealing with a supernatural being.
Most likely a mummy.
The police will perform an autopsy. They normally have a pathologist do that, but their current one keeps rambling about finding secret-coded messages in the bodies from his old friend. Because they need to open the theater, the director says that Sadako will take Aiko's place since she's an understudy. This is where it's revealed what Sadako's job is at the theater, which makes Aiko's mad rantings about staring at her even more goofy. Toyama leads Sadako outside, but it's clear the cast is unhappy about this decision, some even speculating that Sadako did something to Aiko to get the part. It's admittedly not an unfair concern. Sadako was a general understudy, not specifically for Aiko's part, and given how close they are to opening the show, it might be better to have someone with more experience taking the reins rather than her. Though considering Aiko looks like she's been sent through an air fryer, I'm not sure exactly how they think Sadako pulled off killing her. Sadako's nervous and wondering if she unintentionally murdered Aiko since she wanted the part so bad, even seeming to see a ghost of Aiko approach her, but Toyama snaps her out of it. Sadako, play that role. You joined the theater to forget who you are, didn't you? Actually, I just wanted to be in Hamilton. Everybody hates that now for some reason. Just forget about that too. He encourages her to forget herself if that's what she wants, that he'll support her in that. Meanwhile, Dr. Kuno calls Dr. Akuma and asks why he never mentioned the deaths from the psychic demonstration before. Sadako doesn't remember any of it. Sadako of today is not Sadako then. It's almost like her goals and motivations have changed depending on which part of the franchise it is. After some more rehearsal, Toyama is studying the audio they recorded during Aiko's death when his friend from before checks on him. He shows her the recording, pointing out the strange noise on the tape, something that didn't seem to really be there at the time of death, as if it was added to the recording afterwards. It almost sounds like Aiko's voice saying, "got killed." The revival of the Got Milk campaign went to some weird places. We cut over to Sadako's apartment, which looks like a regular house, maybe she's subletting, where the director is talking with her privately. When he starts asking about the photo of her mother, she asks him to leave, but he says he'll help her become a top-notch actress. It's not shown what happens afterwards and not explicitly stated, but we can probably presume bad things, probably coercion and power dynamics issues that are all just yeesh. Admittedly, we don't know for certain, it's just implied by what he says and the silence afterwards. Back over to Toyama, his friend Etsuko, who consequently was the costumer comforting Sadako before, warns Toyama to stay away from Sadako. She had the same dream as Aiko and Kaoru concerning the well, and thinks something terrible is about to happen. Also, Etsuko's name is only said near the end of the manga. I had to look it up from her character in the movie when I was writing this part. I almost wrote that it was never said at all. Later, she's looking for Sadako and asks Toyama about it. A child took Aiko's costume. What's that got to do with Sadako? Don't know, but that child is Sadako.
There is logic in what he says.
I mean, she's right. Sort of, but not really. We'll get into it soon. They find Sadako just sitting alone and holding Aiko's costume, but she's confused, not remembering having done it. Etsuko starts yelling at her that all the weird stuff started with her, but Toyama tells her to knock it off. As she runs off, frustrated by Toyama defending her, Etsuko is apparently supposed to be Toyama's girlfriend, but that's not really explicitly stated in the manga, though definitely more implied in the movie. Sadako says that the director, Shigemori, visited her house, but she can't remember what happened. And that's the same thing with the dress. She sometimes just blacks out. She also admits that she can feel a presence near her, like someone she met long ago, but she can barely remember her childhood. She doesn't even remember asking her mother whose daughter she is, and Shizuko just smiled. She also has a flashback to the guy with a towel on his head from the ring tape, which doesn't connect to anything. It's bringing back the idea from the original movie that maybe Sadako's real father was some kind of Lovecraftian force from the sea. But like the dude with the towel on his head, it's great for mood, but it doesn't really go anywhere. Sadako fainted, and Toyama decided to take the unconscious woman to his place. That's not creepy or anything. Just so you know, I didn't touch you. Okay, why does it feel like you actually made it worse by saying that? Toyama asks if there's anyone else there with them, and she uses her psychic powers, everything seeming to shake telekinetically before she says, yeah, they're alone. And he just shrugs that off and brings her coffee. I wouldn't drink that, Sadako. It looks like he didn't wash that blood off his hands first. She runs off in fear of that vision. Meanwhile, Etsuko looks into Sadako's resume she used to get into the theater and sees that her guarantor was Dr. Kuno. She tries to ask him about Sadako, but he says he can't say anything, though she does drop a flyer with the play details for him to find. At the Twister, Shigemori asks if she stayed at Toyama's the night before, but she doesn't answer. I want to talk to you later. And this is what she sees. I have to ask, do you think this chocolate sauce makes a good exfoliant? Kaoru recommended it, but I'm not really feeling it. Shigemori is told that reporters are here from the culture section to talk about the play, and one of them is Miyagi, who asks to interview Sadako. However, when they take her picture, she seems to be triggered by it, and she telekinetically destroys the camera. Again, probably unintentionally. After Sadako runs off, Miyagi's cameraman spots Etsuko. Hey, that's the girl. She tried to hand that flyer to Kuno at the hospital. I was just stalking Dr. Kuno's office for some reason. Miyagi has him get her contact info, and back at the newspaper office, Sadako's old teacher is waiting to speak with her again. When you visited, there was something I didn't tell. I never told anyone this. Sadako killed the gym teacher when he wouldn't let the kids play with the big parachute. No, she explains that one time she did visit the Yamamura house. She became lost in it and seemed to find another person there, another child. Unfortunately, the artwork doesn't really capture it well, though to be fair, the movie doesn't do a good job making it clear either. The other child was another Sadako. More on that later. Miyagi's cameraman develops the photos, and this is also a bit that the movie did somewhat better. In the manga, all we can really see is a ghostly figure behind Sadako, but in the movie, the other members of the acting troupe all have their faces distorted like those cured by the ring tape. What's more, in a photo of Miyagi, ghosts of the reporters from the psychic demonstration can be seen. The cameraman says that they'd never be able to publish a story about a curse like this, but Miyagi admits this was never about an article. It's not! What the hell is the culture section supposed to publish now? You've still got years before Andrew Lloyd Webber's Phantom of the Opera. At the theater, Shigemori tells Sadako that he remembers who her mother is now and that she supposedly killed someone at the psychic demonstration. But now he's figured out that it was her who did it, and suspects that she killed Aiko too. I was looking for a woman like you. An ideal actress. Yes, psychic murderers are the best actresses. I can understand you better than anyone. Better than Toyama. You can't live in this world without me. You are mine. Harvey Weinstein, the early years. Hey, you know what's a really stupid idea? Telling the woman you suspect of murdering people with her psychic powers that you're going to control them. Yeah, he very quickly realizes his mistake with that and thinks she's gonna kill him, just like she's killed everyone in her way, but she denies that it was her. He attacks her, but Toyama, having witnessed this, steps in to try to stop him. He attacks Toyama, and Sadako just screams to be left alone, and Shigemori is suddenly dead. Toyama was injured in the fight, and she brings him to Dr. Kuno. However, while they bandage the wound, said wound is almost healed already. Sadako apparently has healing abilities too. The movie also shows her healing a man's legs as well, to show that her psychic powers could be used for good, but it's not gonna matter soon. Miyagi contacts Etsuko and has a favor to ask. Could I meet you tomorrow before the theater opens? I've gotta be honest, this play is gonna bomb. You need to retool this thing before it opens. Sadako and Toyama talk about how Shigemori's body will be found by morning. The fight happened late at night. Toyama says he'll turn himself in for it, not wanting Sadako to be put on display. Sadako thinks she's a monster that makes everyone unhappy, but Toyama says she isn't and wants to be with her forever. I'm thinking we could live somewhere small and cozy, but like tall, you know? Maybe some nice stonework and access to fresh water. They return to the theater and clean up the body, hiding it for now. The next day is the opening of the show, and of course the director is nowhere to be found. Kaoru immediately suspects Sadako's involvement, but there's nothing that can be done. They can't cancel the show now. And hey look, the name of the play is The Mask. Now I just have this image in my head of Sadako, but played by Jim Carrey. Before the show starts, Toyama says he'll move the body when the lights go down. Despite this, Sadako, it's still your debut. You're gonna be the best VTuber out there! They express a silent I love you to each other, but hey, wasn't this supposed to be a tragedy? Backstage, they find Shigemori's body, and Kaoru says Sadako must have done it, instructing everyone to ensure she doesn't escape when the play is finished. Well, that's just great. Now you need a third actress for this role. Etsuki tells Toyama that he's being called away and she'll cover for him. Suspecting that they found Shigemori's body, he leaves, and Etsuki replaces the audio that was supposed to be played with Miyagi's tape of the psychic demonstration. Toyama returns and asks what the hell, Etsuki saying that he needs to know everything about Sadako, and it's too late. The ghost of Shizuko appears and the same sound when Aiko died can be heard. Ghosts of the demonstration seem to appear to her, but Dr. Kuno steps in, trying to calm her down. It seems to work at first, especially as the tape runs out, but then in her panic she sees the bloody face of Shigemori and her powers erupt, sending a spotlight down that kills Kuno. Well, not instantly, it lights him on fire too. Yeesh, I can't decide if this is better or worse than the movie, where he's choked, falls onto a table and full of candles, and then his stuff falls on him to crush him. And you know the worst part is that the play is only going to get mixed reviews, mostly praising the costuming? The audience flees from this, as does Sadako. Now, these are the perils of making a prequel, because it seems like when Reiko Asakawa was doing research on Sadako in the original Ringu, that this little incident might have gotten brought up. Miyagi, who had intended to shoot Sadako during all this, spots a ghostly figure watching. The cast and crew, meanwhile, who in a very nice bit of artistry on Meimu's part have now become faceless monsters themselves, scream to not let Sadako get away, that she's a monster. They even tell her to stop wearing that human mask while she's still wearing the half mask from the play, and they proceed to beat her to death. Toyama is, of course, horrified to discover this, but just collapses. A truly tragic end to Sadako. Which, of course, leads to her creating a haunted videotape wherein she crawls out of a well— Hey, wait a second. Yeah, as Miyagi comes across the mob and the dead girl, she informs them that it's not over. Remember the nightmare about a well? There's another Sadako. Until that one's killed, you'll all die by her curse. Oh, right, yeah, the other Sadako. What? Okay, this is mostly gonna get explained in a minute, but it's just weird that Miyagi knows what's going on. Like, yes, there are clues about this, but the clues are very vague to the point where you'd assume that Sadako had, like, an alternate personality, not that there are two of her. Ringu Zero, after it came out, was disregarded by some as a Carrie ripoff, and that's incredibly disingenuous and unfair. Putting aside that Sadako and Carrie's traumas are based in very different things, Sadako's self-loathing because of the dark past with her mother, plus the condemnation of the press, versus Carrie's abuse at the hands of her classmates and overly religious mother. Their big inciting incident in front of a crowd leads to widespread murder in Carrie's case as she snaps from everything that's happened, while Sadako flees in horror from her own trauma and the pain she is inadvertently causing until a mob murders her. Sadako is haunted by her own past that she can barely remember, trying desperately to be someone else, while Carrie just wants to be accepted for who she is until she finally snaps. Plus, you know, it can't be a Carrie ripoff. In the American timeline, Samara is Carrie's daughter. But yeah, let's get into the two Sadakos thing, because I think this was a major misstep for the film. It doesn't ruin it like the missteps for Rasen, but I think it creates several problems. I guess after the murder and everything, all the cast and crew just hung out for a bit, while Miyagi heads to Sadako's apartment and finds an address for Dr. Akuma hidden in the picture of Shizuko, located near a sanatorium to tie into that plot point from the original story, though it's not really necessary since that doctor who tried to assault her isn't a part of this or Ringu. They find Akuma's house and the well nearby it. Miyagi instructing Kaoru and Mitsuko to keep an eye on Toyama, who they brought along, I guess. Toyama's spending all his time just watching over Sadako's body. My love, I hate to even bring this up, but we still have 3 more performances scheduled for this week, and your replacement sucks. So if there's any way your psychic powers can bring you back from the dead, it'd be really helpful for the theater. They meet Dr. Akuma, who knows that they're here to kill Sadako. So, what's the explanation for the two Sadakos?
Sadako was one, but after the public experiment of supernatural power, she split into 2.
Of course! Don't you know anything about science?
Okay, there's a bit more to it. Her self-loathing became so great that her psychic powers split her into 2 beings. One that was more like her mother, and the other her darker side, more resembling whatever entity was Sadako's father. This drove Shizuko insane, and Dr. Akuma tried to keep the darker half from growing more powerful through drugging her. This is actually a slightly better explanation than the movie itself gives, where instead of it happening after the psychic demonstration, the split just happened at some point, like it's just a natural part of puberty or something. Girls get their first periods and then divide by mitosis. This whole splitting her in two thing is a mistake in my opinion, for a lot of reasons. First and foremost because it feels like it removes a lot of Sadako's agency as a character and the tragedy of the whole thing. Yes, there is still a tragedy here, but not in the same way. Instead of it just being a power that she didn't fully understand, the implication here is that all the murders, all the dark things that happened, are not her fault in any way. It was her evil psychic twin that was split from her as a little girl, who's a ghost maybe and following her around. Like, there must have been some kind of physical being that Akuma could drug, but that being just vanishes, as we'll see in a minute. But despite the drugs, she could project her ghostly form to protect her other half. Like, people keep seeing her hanging around good Sadako, and she stole a dress for some reason, and slept with the director? Would she even care about what happened to her if it was all her dark side? Why didn't she just kill Akuma to escape? It also reinforces that bad seed idea from the original novels, that Sadako is just naturally malevolent. Oh sure, you could argue she has her good side, one that's split off from the dark side, but that dark side is going to be the whole of her existence from here on out, and likely was in the driver's seat a lot longer beforehand. This is actually something I would have welcomed more to be like Carrie, that Sadako is just so pissed off at the injustice of all this that she snaps. But no, it's okay, guys. It's just her evil demon side who's to blame. Now, as I said, this is not a deal breaker for the film, and it's about to get very cathartic for everything that happened, but this whole idea of the split Sadako is just weird and unnecessary, and how did Miyagi figure this out? Again, all she knew was a ghostly figure hanging around Sadako. That could have just been the ghost of her mom protecting her or something. But whatever, the mob heads upstairs to kill the other Sadako, but then the one in the truck starts twitching. Alive. Etsuko is naturally weirded out, but upon seeing how happy she and Toyama are to be resurrected, lets them leave. Kaoru sees them and is also confused. How come she resurrected? Don't worry about it. That's the plot of like half of these movies. It won't take. Etsuko just holds her back and tells her to let them go. Back in the house, the other Sadako is gone. Her room just has a TV with static on it and a half-eaten meal. Dr. Akuma realizes what's happened. They brought the good Sadako with them, and somehow the two Sadakos have rejoined, which is what resurrected her. Kaoru yells out that Sadako is escaping with Toyama, leading the mob down to chase them. Sadako tells Toyama he needs to leave without her, but he refuses to go. Sadako looks out at the sea, and her hair covers her face, now completely subsumed by her darker side. Toyama tells her that he loves her, and that's the last we see of him. Or, you know, we could have him 30 years later telling a reporter about how she was a fling he had, but she was also sleeping with the director and finding weird little altars and sound booths that have umbilical cords in them, and then gives him a heart attack after she resurrects from being cloned birthed by one of her victims, and this is all just an elaborate revenge scheme for her mom. The novels are dumb. So, as you can imagine, with all of her darker side in control now, and probably feeling a tad miffed about being murdered by these people, Sadako goes on a slasher rampage, friggin' decapitating people with telekinesis. Kaoru is the only one who realizes how utterly boned they are and that there's no hope of escape. And then her head is chopped off. Kudos to Meimu for this shot of her eye. And then the next panel, it's upside down to indicate the head falling over and hitting the ground. Miyagi and Etsuko are last, the latter seemingly injured by Sadako as they're chased into the house. Sadako slowly comes out towards them. I feel like both the manga and the movie have differing strengths to this whole sequence. In the movie, we don't see decapitations, just Sadako floating around and people falling over dead, whereas the manga is much more satisfying in the kills. However, the ending in the house is better in the movie, where we see more of Sadako moving around and advancing on the two.
Surprise, motherfucker!
Whereas in the manga, we just see Sadako emerging from behind a wall, then a bloody Sadako before Akuma finds her weeping over the very bloody corpses. The implication in the movie is that Miyagi shot Etsuko and herself before Sadako could get to them, but it's not clear. Sadako could have used her powers to do it. Still, it seems with all her murderers gone, her darker half has retired. Like I said, it feels a bit disappointing because it's less Sadako's righteous vengeance against her killers and more just her evil half being evil and she didn't really have a say in it. It's not bad, and clearly her darker half is influenced by her good side by virtue of her targets of revenge, but still.
Sadako, Let's go home. You're grounded, young lady!
In the house, Ikuma injects her with something to supposedly calm her down. She asks who her real father was, but he just says he's her father. However, we soon realize that he's poisoned her. Whatever he injected her with is choking her and she flees outside. Ikuma follows after her with a cleaver, slicing her across the face, then shoving her in the well, with of course the shot of her looking up at him from the bottom. She has a brief dream sequence of being reunited with Toyama, but then she awakens in the well as Akuma seals it off with her screaming. So, yeah, you'll probably be alive down there for like 30 years, but hey, I don't expect a Father's Day card after this. Maybe Christmas. She seems to get lost in the well water as the narration repeats the line from the play about being born again, even if it's against God's will. And so our manga ends back with our framing device. Kane putting in the cursed tape to watch it. And we probably needed that framing device because, well, we needed to remind people that this is the franchise about the haunted videotape. Anyway, this manga is a damn good adaptation of a damn good movie. Despite my criticisms about the two Sadakos thing, Ring Zero is a shockingly good story in either form here. Like I said a couple years ago when I gave my brief thoughts on each movie in the franchise, it's easy to write off a tragic backstory prequel to a horror movie because they usually follow really lame beats about the killer having a sucky childhood and that equals serial killer, which, yeah, we're not here to sympathize with the killer. But with Sadako, it works because her story is tragic and they inject real pathos and emotion with her. We root for her when people are being irrationally afraid of her and her powers, made no better by a woman out for revenge for something Sadako doesn't even remember doing. We know there can't be a happy ending for her, but we wish there could be, and it is cathartic to see her killers get what's coming to them. Another little criticism is that other people seeing the well or dreaming about it is not really explained. After all, nothing bad has happened with the well yet. Sure, they're cursed, but why? Is it just because they're in close proximity to her for a while? I wonder if the talk with Dr. Kuno discussing premonitions of disaster was in an earlier version of the script as a way to explain the well. That Sadako is subconsciously projecting this premonition of what's going to happen to her out to others. Since otherwise it's not really gone into at all why everyone would be having nightmares about it. The story is only barely horror in this installment. Much like the original Ringu, it's another genre, in this case supernatural romantic drama, that happens to have one big horror scene at the end. Meimu's art really helps elevate the horror elements of it, though, for the adaptation. The ghostly stuff wasn't really frightening in the movie, but the manga makes them appropriately spoopy, and stuff like Aiko's murder is given the horror bent it deserves to have. And say what you will about Samara's little angry face in the American version, but I feel a lot more genuine rage from the stiff body Sadako has in this, and definite points for the artsy sequence in the film where we see a lot of stuff in her eye. A subtle reminder of the tape's visuals. Plus the shot of her hair quickly overtaking her face to hide her human features. Honestly, the only thing missing at the end is that downturned eye staring down at Miyagi and Etsuko to steal their fate. Great flick, great manga, great start to the season. Next time, we're done with the main volume Ring manga. So now let's see if we can view Sadako in a very different sort of scenario. In Sadako at the End of the World. A child took Aiko's costume. What's that got to do with Sadako? Don't know. But that child is Sadako. Are we leading to a Spartacus moment where we suddenly have everybody yelling, "No, I'm Sadako"? Hello my friends, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications on new video releases. If you'd like to support future videos, you can check out my Patreon or purchase a t-shirt via Teespring or Shark Robot. Thanks for watching!